Thank you, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for bearing with us also. My name is Rebecca Barantes, and I'm your moderator for this evening's meeting supporting Caltrans District 7's Environmental Affairs Department. So on behalf of Caltrans, welcome. It's our pleasure to be assisting Caltrans with the scoping meeting for the reopening of Highway 39, the first step in the environmental process and one of many opportunities for the public to be informed and to give input. I'm going to give people a little bit more time to log in and join our meeting. So far, I'm showing about 45 people, which is great. But just so everyone knows, we had over 250 people register for this meeting. So those numbers could climb. And throughout the presentation, we'll be having more attendees. So just sit tight for a second, and we'll let that tick up. And then I'll give you some more information about tonight's meeting, especially how to participate in the public comment period for both our English and our Spanish-speaking attendees. So just a moment, we'll be right back. Okay, very great. Just so everyone knows, our Spanish language interpreter is activated now, and I'll go through an explanation of how you can access Spanish language translation on a separate channel in just a moment. Okay, we have approximately 51 attendees, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with tips on participation. So here we go. All right. Well, first of all, we want to let everybody know who has joined or maybe just in the process of joining that before we get started, that it is really possible to not only participate in English, but also in Spanish. And I'm going to have my colleague, Ruben Hoyos, explain how to listen and participate in Spanish. Ruben?
Sí, buenas tardes. Le damos la bienvenida y gracias a todos por acompañarnos esta tarde. Estamos muy agradecidos por su tiempo y valoramos más que nada su participación. En el transcurso de esta reunión, escucharán una presentación del reunión del alcance y muy importante, podrán dar su opinión. Pueden escuchar la presentación y participar de este encuentro virtual en español. Para los que necesitan asistencia, por favor busquen en la parte de abajo de su pantalla el símbolo del globo o donde dice English o español. Debajo del globo dice interpretación. Por favor, haga clic en ese globo, selecciona español y podrá escuchar al intérprete, el señor Aldo Ruiz Rivera, y ver la presentación de PowerPoint. Después de la presentación habrá un periodo de comentarios. Sus comentarios son bienvenidos ya sea oralmente o por escrito. Debido al tiempo limitado, le pedimos que por favor que proporcione comentarios solamente, no preguntas detallistas, ya que es el objetivo principal de la reunión del alcance, recopilar su opinión. Si usted desea hablar, por favor levante la mano presionando el botón de mano donde dice Raise your hand. Se les permitirá 3 minutos para hablar. Si prefiere escribir sus comentarios en el chat, por favor, haga clic en el símbolo de chat en la parte de abajo de la pantalla y escribe sus comentarios. El señor Aldo Ruiz Rivera y yo traduciremos esos comentarios para los demás personas en la audiencia. Además, si no pueden comentar en la reunión de esta noche, tendrán un periodo adicional de 1 mes para enviar sus comentarios por escrito hasta el 16 de enero. Realmente le valoramos su opinión y por lo tanto queremos animar a ustedes para que puedan enviar sus comentarios, ya sean por hablar o que por escrito. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Ruben. We welcome you who just joined us again. We're grateful for your time and your participation this evening. You're going to be hearing a presentation, and most importantly, as Ruben was outlining in Spanish, you'll be able to give us your input. So here's some tips on how you can do that. Your comments are welcome during the public comment period, which is going to be later on in the presentation, using raise your hand or chat. After the presentation, again, there will be the public comment period, and you're welcome to submit orally or in writing. We ask that you only provide comments, as this is the primary purpose of the scoping meeting, to gather your input. When the public comment period starts, if you want to speak, please navigate to the reactions button, which is here in this black box here on the screen that you're seeing. That's where you would find it. You click on that, click on raise hand, and I will see that. I'll see your raised hand, and when it comes to your turn to speak, I will unmute you, and I'll call out your name or whatever you have on your screen identifying yourself. You'll be allowed 3 minutes to speak, and we'll be putting a timer up on the screen. I would invite you to please state your name before you speak. It's not mandatory, but it'll help us know who is commenting for our records. If you prefer to write your comments, please click on chat at the bottom of your screen. It's a little white squarish looking box with a little pointy thing sticking out the bottom, and write your comment. And we also encourage you to include your name and an email address, again, just to help us know who's making the comment. And last but not least, if you want to submit your comments after the meeting, you'll be given the information later on in the presentation on how and where to do that. And we will post that information also in the chat box. You will have the opportunity to submit written comments up until January 16th, 2023. We do have many people in the room now. We probably have over 70, almost 80 people here tonight. We'll do our best to hear from as many people as possible during the meeting time allotted, and we encourage everyone to speak with respect, speak and listen with respect at all times. And with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Carl Price, Senior Environmental Planner with Caltrans District 7, who will be our presenter tonight. Take it away, Carl.
All right, well, thank you, Rebecca, and good evening, everybody. It's good to see such a large audience here tonight. I'm glad we have such strong interest in this project. As Rebecca said, my name is Carl Price. I'm Senior Environmental Planner with Caltrans District 7 in Los Angeles. And I want to take a moment again to thank you for taking the time to participate in this public scoping meeting. I'm here on behalf of Caltrans and the Federal Highway Administration. You know, Caltrans has been designated as NEPA lead agency authority by FHWA, so we will be the lead agency for both CEQA and NEPA on this project. Today is our initial step in interacting with the communities and the stakeholders interested in the project. And the central reason that we're here is to listen to you. You know, the San Gabriel Mountains are in your backyard. Highway 39 is in your backyard. So you know the area, you know, you've got a vested interest in what happens there. So we want to hear from you. And you'll have, as Rebecca said, you'll have that opportunity to provide input a little bit later this evening. So, scoping is, let me start that over. So this is a scoping meeting. the U.S. Council on Environmental Quality defines scoping as an early and open process for identifying issues related to the proposed action. And that's why we're here. So during this presentation, we're going to be going over a few things to help obtain your input. We're going to go over the environmental process, the scoping process. We'll provide you with some project background, and then some preliminary information on the project alternatives that we've developed so far. Next slide. So, after we provide that information, it will be your turn, and that's the goal of scoping, is to identify, issues. And so we need your help. We need you to get involved. We need to, for you to participate early and often in the environmental process. Provide your comments, your suggestions, and any relevant information. And if you're associated or affiliated with an organization or an agency, please let us know when you provide those comments. That way we can stay in touch with that agency or organization as well. It's important to remember that scoping is a flexible process, and that each project is unique. Certainly the 39 is unique. And also it's important to remember that as of this point, we have not made any decisions on the project. We're collecting suggestions and input from you, the stakeholders, and we will take that input seriously and in consideration as we move forward. Caltrans has a multidisciplinary team, many of whom are here with us tonight, and we're charged with the responsibility of ensuring that environmental concerns and community concerns really do influence the decision-making process. So, what we identify as important on this project, it really does need to be a reflection of you and what you think is important. So again, I want to encourage you to provide your comments verbally or written, get on our mailing list, check out our project website, and stay involved. Those are three key things that we need your help with. Okay, so many of you probably know that Route 39 is a winding, narrow 2-lane road that goes through rugged terrain up in the mountains. It connects the San Gabriel Valley to State Route 2, and it provides access to the Angeles National Forest for hiking, camping, and a variety of other recreational activities. However, the last 4.4 miles of the 39 have been closed for many years because of rock slides. Before that, however, people could use Highway 39 as another route to access, the mountain communities of Wrightwood and beyond into the high desert area. So, the last 4.4 mile section of Route 39 has been closed since 1978, because of unstable slopes both above and below the highway. We're talking generally about the area from north of Crystal Lake Road up to State Route 2. So in that area, we experience frequent rock slides that send dirt and rocks onto the road and basically just makes it unsafe for people to use the highway. Since 1990, we have Caltrans maintenance crews have been maintaining this section. They'll go up there periodically, clear the debris, make minor repairs, but they're basically just doing enough so that the road can be used by the Forest Service and emergency personnel, such as sheriffs, the Sheriff's Department, fire departments, and others. So there have been, previous efforts to open this road, this segment of the road, I should say. In 2009, an environmental document was prepared and a project was approved to reopen the segment by implementing, some major construction work that would have stabilized the damaged segment of the roadway. That project was broken down into a couple of phases. The first phase of the project did restore 5 sections of the collapsed roadway, and it was completed back in 2011. However, after that time, there were a combination of factors that put the second phase of that project on hold. There were financial constraints, fiscal constraints, escalating construction costs, just the geologic instability of the slopes up there, and then also the Nelson's bighorn sheep, which is a fully protected species. Those three elements combined to lead Caltrans to put a halt to work up there and basically to deem that that project was no longer viable. So in May of 2012, we basically terminated the project and moved on as if we had selected the no build option for that project. So, obviously, this current project is going to face a number of challenges as we try to reopen the road. The bighorn sheep is a state fully protected species. That's a designation that it was given, I believe, back in the 60s, even before the California Endangered Species Act became law. And it's a challenge because basically it means that, there cannot be a reasonable chance that an animal will be harmed, harassed, or killed as a result of our project. And that is both during construction and later after the road reopens. Another major issue that we'll face is the rockfall and the slides that continue to occur in the area. The unstable slope presents a challenge in keeping the road maintained and open to traffic while keeping people safe, which is our primary concern. And then also just, the fact that the project is located near the top of the mountain in a remote location. Winters, snows and storms can limit our construction windows. So those will be additional challenge that we would face to try to reopen the road. So, okay, so every project, that undergoes an evaluation, environmental evaluation, has to have a purpose and need. Basically, you can think of the need as the deficiency or the problem, and the purpose is a set of objectives that will be met to address those problems. And we develop a range of alternatives or solutions to that are evaluated based on these objectives. And in part, selection of a preferred alternative is based in part on how well it satisfies and meets the purpose and needs of the project. So as you can see on the screen, we've got several elements within our purpose and need. I'm going to start with the need or the problem, because I think that's really what drives the project forward. We've got to solve a problem. So as you can see, some of the problems that we have in this area, we've got the fact that the current conditions continue to degrade, and they pose a safety and hazard to maintenance crews and other people who might use the roadway. There are also a couple of sections of the California Streets and Highways Code that require Caltrans to improve and maintain state highways, and require Caltrans to monitor the cumulative impacts of fragmented gaps in the state highway system to identify safety and long-term maintenance issues. So obviously this closed section of Route 39 is a gap in the highway system. It does present some safety issues due to access in the area. Caltrans is also a partner with the Forest Service, and we have a goal of helping the Forest Service meet their policies and goals within their Angeles National Forest land management plan. Among their many responsibilities, the Forest Service is a recreational, they're tasked with providing recreational opportunities. So access into the forest is one way that we can help them do that. And then also safety, emergency access into the area. There's a need to enhance access for emergency personnel safely. So given those needs and those deficiencies, we've identified a few goals or objectives for the project. One would be to restore access between Interstate 210 and Route 2. We're closing the gap, in the roadway, in the system. Enhancing access for emergency personnel, for fire, law enforcement, search and rescue, and so on. Improving recreational access. And then improving safety and operation of the roadway, reducing vehicle congestion on Highway 39, and addressing parking capacity issues. So, we've developed a range of alternatives that we feel may satisfy these objectives, while also addressing the challenges that I was talking about earlier. So we'll go through those alternatives now. We've got 6 alternatives. Next slide, please. We've got no build alternative, and then we have 5 build alternatives, and I'll go through those one by one. Okay, so the no build alternative is basically, doing continued maintenance as we've been doing for the last couple of decades. No real major construction, just maintaining the road for emergency access the way we've been doing it so far. Okay, next slide. And then our second alternative is what we call an evacuation route. And this proposes to rehabilitate the pavement, but maintaining the closed segment only as an evacuation route. So there will be limited roadway restoration. The road would continue to be closed to public access. Access would be strictly for emergency responders and our maintenance personnel. And the elements of this alternative would be to reconstruct the roadway, do drainage restoration, construct soldier pile retaining walls, such as the image you see here on the screen. Those will be used to support the highway in areas where the slope below it might be vulnerable, and then doing some upgrades to the guardrails. So it's relatively limited improvements, just to make it a little bit safer and improve access for our emergency personnel. Okay, so alternative 3 is what we're calling the recreation route. And this would rehabilitate the roadway and include construction of sustainable parking areas at the beginning and the end of the closed section. We're calling it the recreation route alternative because activities would be limited to recreation, such as hiking, biking, picnicking, and camping, and so on. There would also be a shuttle service that could be operated by trained drivers that could carry people in and out of the area. What we would do is try to limit those speeds to 15 miles an hour or so. And then, the drivers will be trained to be on the lookout for wildlife, bighorn sheep and so on, and exercise extreme caution at wildlife crossing areas. And of course, emergency and maintenance vehicles would still have access to the road. So, some of the elements that we would include in this alternative are, again, pedestrian access and biking access, shuttle service, parking lots for visitors to park and then walk or hike in or bike in. We would do similar kinds of roadway reconstruction as was described previously. There would be one major viaduct, and you can see an image of just sort of as an example of a viaduct here on the screen. And that would be done to route traffic away from areas where rockfall is pretty severe. Um, we'd also install a couple of rock sheds. There's an image on your screen of that, and that basically would funnel rocks over the highway so they would not land on the road and damage the highway or put people at risk there. We would also include several soldier pile retaining walls, and then do some rock scaling to remove any loose rocks that might be threatening to fall down onto the roadway. There would also be some sort of a catchment device, either fencing or a rockfall drapery or something that would be added in those areas that needed it to prevent rocks from falling down into the future. Alternative 4, this is where we get into full public access. We would rehabilitate and reopen the road. It includes constructing bridges and rock sheds and installing wildlife fences. There will be unrestricted access. So we would have through traffic that could travel, between Interstate 210 and State Route 2. So that gap would be open completely. The proposed construction elements of this alternative are the same as on the previous alternative, except that we wouldn't include parking lots at either end because the roads wouldn't be closed. Instead, we would put a roundabout in at the State Route 39, State Route 2 junction. Additional elements of this alternative would be putting in 3 viaducts at various locations that would facilitate wildlife crossings, and also installing a continuous barrier fence that would restrict bighorn sheep from accessing the roadway. So alternative 5 is involves constructing a 4.4 mile long viaduct structure, the standard 2-lane elevated viaduct that would be put adjacent to the existing roadway. It would be, basically a new road off of the existing slope. And this would allow wildlife to cross underneath the roadway and would help, avoid potential conflicts between wildlife and vehicles. The viaduct would also allow debris and water runoff to pass under the road. The viaduct would, as it's currently proposed, would have one 12-foot lane in each direction and 10-foot wide outside shoulders. There would also be a roundabout at the 239 junction as well. Now, alternative 6 is what we're calling the single lane alternative. For this alternative, we would restore the road to accommodate a single 12-foot lane with 4-foot shoulders on either side. And it's kind of interesting because cars that would be traveling in opposite directions, they would need to use caution and be very careful to allow the oncoming traffic to pass. There aren't too many roads like this in California, but the image that you see there is, I believe, from Big Basin State Park. So there are similar roads on other low volume areas in the state. It's just not a common thing that you see, but it's an option that's worth considering. This alternative would also include a roundabout at the State Route 2, State Route 39 junction, the viaducts for wildlife crossings, and then also the barrier fencing for bighorn sheep. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a range of alternatives that have been developed, and we'll be evaluating these as we go through the environmental process. Right now we are in scoping. We're having our scoping meeting. We're in the early stages of doing our environmental studies. As we move forward, we'll be identifying impacts, perhaps screening out an alternative or two that might not satisfy our purpose and need, or it might have environmental concerns that are not worth pursuing. So we'll be looking at those alternatives. We'll prepare our draft environmental document. And in the fall of 2023, next fall, we anticipate completing that document, circulating it to the public, letting you take a look at it. We'll hold a public meeting, a public hearing on the document and on the project, where we'll get your feedback again. We will take your feedback, and we will take the results of our studies that are contained in that document, and we'll identify a preferred alternative, and we will take that information, wrap it all up into a final environmental document, and then release that, we anticipate, in summer of 2024. So we've got a year and a half or so of work ahead of us on this project, on the environmental phase of the project. We're really just getting started. So, in addition to the range of alternatives that I just went through, we've also got a wide range of environmental issues that we'll be looking at. What you see on your screen is a preliminary list. We can add to it if we need to, if something is brought to our attention that we're not aware of at the moment. We will certainly evaluate that going forward. All of these issues are important, and we will treat them all equally. But one thing we know is that the bighorn sheep and how we avoid impacts to that species will be key on this project. So, we will be continuing to coordinate with resource agencies and others as we move forward through the environmental process. Okay, so, and moving forward, this is a little bit of a summary or repeat of what I mentioned a moment ago. We're working on the draft environmental document currently. We anticipate releasing that to the public next fall, having a final environmental document in the summer of 2024, and then final project approval shortly thereafter. So, that brings us to the end of my presentation. In a moment, we're going to open this up to you for your comments. And I want to remind you that we can't do this without you. We really do need your comments. We need your suggestions. We need your ideas. So please take this opportunity to provide comments tonight. Or if you need time to digest the information, or perhaps you might think of something later on, please send me an email or send me a letter with your comments. My contact information is there on the screen. We do take every comment that we receive very seriously, and we will use them to guide us as we move forward. So again, please provide your comments in one form or another. Also, we will make the slides here available on our project website, and we will also be posting access to the recording of this presentation on our Caltrans YouTube channel. Give us a little bit of time to do this, because it takes, it shouldn't take too long, but we do need a little bit of time to actually get these posted online. But they will be there. So if you want to go back and review this information, check out our Caltrans project website. Okay. And so with that, I'm going to transition this back over to Rebecca and let her take care of you during the public comment period. Again, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention. I'm glad that we have so many people showing up tonight. And again, we can't do this without you. Your input, your feedback is critical as we move forward. So again, I'm going to hand this back over to Rebecca. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Carl. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and go over what I said earlier about participating in the public comment period for those of you who joined us a little later than others. So first of all, here's a quick review. All Spanish and English translations of comments will be handled. Your comments are welcome, so use that raise your hand feature or in order to speak, or use the chat to submit any kind of written comments. We will have 3 minutes per speaker, and we will be unmuting you as you raise your hands and giving you those 3 minutes. And we're going to be putting a timer up on the screen. And as always, we invite you to listen and speak with respect to others. So with that, I am going to ask my colleague, Laura Santos, to launch the timer. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then she's going to be putting that timer up on the screen, and I'm going to be looking at our raised hands here in just a moment. So I'm going to do that right now. Laura, so you are able to go ahead and share your screen. There is the timer.
Yeah,
Okay, and I see that we have 86 attendees, and right now I'm showing that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands raised. And I'm going to start with our first raised hand, which is, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Hang on a second. It keeps changing my view. It is Topher Mathers. Is that correct? Topher?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and speak. And I'm gonna, Laura, have you got the timer up?
Yes, can you see it? Can you see the
I-
timer?
I can't, but maybe others can.
I can't see it.
No? Okay, let me close it and open it again. Okay. Apps. Timer. Share. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, now I can't. Let me see. Okay, I think we're ready.
Okay, go ahead, Topher.
Sure. I just want to thank you guys for the presentation and ask that maybe if you could, the stuff that you put in the chat, if you can send that in an email, because you can't actually copy paste from the chat. So it's kind of hard to get that information. So if you can send that to all the people that registered to this, that might be helpful. And then second, I just want to, when looking at this proposal, I think it's paramount that Caltrans keep in mind that California is in a climate crisis, and there's goals set by the state for us to reduce our BMT, our vehicle miles traveled, and to reduce our GHG emissions. And it looks like some of these proposals would be spending maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to actually increase both of those. But so I think we should have to keep that in mind when we're spending state dollars on projects that are kind of going against the stated goals of the state. But I do like the proposal of the recreational section, allowing the people to walk and people to ride their bikes through it. That's kind of currently the setup that it has. I mean, it is open to recreationists who want to walk and bike, and that's how I've experienced that closed section. It's really beautiful. I bike through there, and it's quite a nice space to be able to get away from vehicular recreationalists, which is a very hard thing to do in the San Gabriels. So I know that would probably cost a lot, but I do like that idea of clearing it, having access for people. And conversely, I know it looks like you guys are looking to, you want to be able to have access for first responders. Unfortunately, I think if you actually open up to that section, the 39, to cars and motorcyclists, you're going to have to need more responders because there's going to be more cars up there. There's going to be more crashes. It's going to stress out the first responders that we already do have. And just, if you're opening that up to cars, you're really just kind of improving vehicular access. you're not really improving recreational access. There's two different types of like recreation going up in the San Gabriels. So I just want to keep that in mind. And I just really like the idea of having some kind of transit system. I'm not sure if the shuttle
1 minute.
Thank you. I'm not sure if the shuttle has to go just that closed section. I mean, the shuttle should be really coming from the Azusa Gold Line station. So people can take a shuttle and go all the way up there. And maybe keep that section still closed to shuttles. And then the shuttle could just stop where it's closed. And then there could be like a bike rental station at the top of the 39, and people can rent bikes and go up and down there and then camp and stuff. But I think we should, spending upwards of hundreds of $millions to increase GHG emissions doesn't seem like a good idea. And I don't think many of those proposals that are presented, you'd be able to do those without, killing bighorn sheep. Like that's just going to happen if you open that up to vehicular recreationists. So those are my comments. Thank you for your time, and thank you for this presentation.
Thank you, Topher. I'm going to move next to Paul Fetters. I'm unmuting you, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can everyone hear Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, my question would be, irregardless of what option is selected, would the last 4 miles be open to hikers and mountain bikers? And that's it.
Okay, can we have Carl possibly to answer that question?
Yeah, we're here really to take comments and not so much to answer questions because we don't have all the answers. So I'm going to hold off on answering that. We will mark that down as a comment that you would like access to bikers and hikers, and then we will take that into consideration. Thank you.
I would just ask that you clarify the bikers as pedal power mountain bike and not motorcyclist.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's just that it be really specific. That's all that I've got. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to move on down the list. I'm going to move next to Tony Chen. And I'm unmuting you. And everyone that has already spoken, I'm going to lower your hand. So I know that we've already heard from you. Go ahead. Go ahead, Tony.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So I was looking at all the alternatives, the project alternatives. Looks like you listed 6 of them. They all have their pros and cons, but one that really stood out to me was the last one, alternative number 6, where it's just a 12 feet wide lane roadway. So that one roadway, you're going to need to have allowed two-way vehicle traffic because that particular alternative is unrestricted vehicle access. So you need to have room for two-way vehicle access. You're going to have mountain bikers up there. You're going to have hikers up there. So if the road is already not wide enough for 2 vehicles to pass each other without moving over, there's no rooms for the bicyclists. SR 39 as it is already a very narrow highway. There are a lot of times where if you're going around a bend on SR 39 and there's a bicyclist going the same direction as you, you are going to be stuck behind that bicyclist until you can get a line of sight that's further enough down where you need to cross over wrong way momentarily as you pass a bicyclist and then re-enter, your original direction of travel. So if you go with alternative number 6, there's just simply enough room for cars and bicyclists, period. Now, if Caltrans are going to be doing maintenance on the roadway, how is that going to work? Are you guys going to shut the roadway down on both ends from the beginning of the closure right now where SR 39 is already closed and then State Route 2? And if that's the case, then all these motorists coming up SR 39 is a solid 45-minute drive from the base of the canyon all the way to the very top. They're going to drive 45 minutes to go up there just to find out that the gate is closed for them to no longer be able to access SR2. So I honestly, again, for the 6 alternatives that you guys presented, 5 has the pros and cons, but I think number 6 stands out to me as the one that's just not feasible. And that's just my opinion. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Gonna lower your hand. Okay, the next person I have is Jarek Johnson. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Jarek.
How's this? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
thank you so much. So my name's Garrett Johnson. I'm the president of Angeles Volunteer Association. We're one of the oldest lived volunteer associations servicing the Angeles National Forest. And we focus primarily on San Gabriel Canyon, the Crystal Lake Recreation Area. We host the visitor center there, as well as participate in hosting the visitor center at the beginning of the forest at the Azusa Gateway. So we've had a lot of experience, and just as far as your alternatives, obviously a lot of continued investigation about the value of each alternative, but I would say unrestricted access makes the most sense for that highway. More than 4 decades it's been closed. We experience the problems that causes for the recreating public on a constant basis. And us ourselves up there, you need to have an accessible channel to get out of the canyon should something happen, like wildfire, which, we've got 3 or 4 major ones in just the last few years. So my point in question is this. I think unrestricted access is the way to go. Yes, there's environmental concerns associated with it, but we've been partners and part of projects that took place in the Angeles National Forest. Big and high scope improvement projects. We're going to make this better out here, and we're going to fix out the bridge to nowhere and all that. And we go through the entire process. We come all the way to the end, we get a final report, and then there's no funding.
1 minute.
What is the status of your ability to actually fund this project that will ultimately be suggested? That's the end for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, I am going to lower your hand, Jarek.
Good.
And move on to our next speaker, which is Michael Ballard. And I'm going to allow you to talk, Michael, and please say something so we can know that we can hear you.
Hello. I can be heard?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Well, my name is Michael Ballard. I run a website, SoCalRegion.com, which has quite a bit of information about state highways throughout Southern California, and one in particular, of course, State 39. My concern for the project is less actually for the 4.4 miles of closure. It's actually the section below that, should the roadway be reopened, it fully reopened, it would put more pressure on the sections of State 39 below, specifically between Crystal Lake and Colebrook Station, a section that was going to be upgraded, but that plan, was basically abandoned in the 1970s due to landslide issues, not unlike the section that is presently closed. Part of it used to be a 1-lane roadway, not unlike, I guess, the option 6. My concern is just the project itself. I look forward to hopefully being able to drive that section of highway, or at least be able to access it. I bicycled it or walked it in the past. But I do know that would put a lot of pressure on other segments of State 39, and those definitely would need a bit more of attention should the gap be closed. So I guess that's kind of my comment is other sections would need attention should this section be reopened.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Okay, our next speaker is Graham Breakwell. I'm allowing you to talk. Go ahead, Graham. You may need to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me now? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Well, thank you. First off, I just want to thank you all for putting on all this information. It's really great. I've got a question rather than any recommendations on proposals. I looked at your proposals from 2019. We've got the 5 proposals and not proposal 6, which is the single lane. And the costs vary between 25 million and sort of $750 million. I was curious, where does the money come from? Is it Federal Highways or State of California? And who decides how much money can be available? Thank you. No more questions.
Okay, Graham, tonight we're taking comments, but we're still going to make note of your question. Okay, moving on. Our next speaker is Steve Sobel. I'm allowing you to speak now, Steve, and asking you to unmute. So please let us hear your voice.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you for putting on this meeting. My perspective is a little different. I actually have lived in District 8 for 20 years. And I live in Apple Valley, just a few minutes off the 15 freeway. And my opinion is framed in terms of alternate routes down the hill, we call it, into the Inland Empire and LA County. We have had, since I moved out here, we've had a couple, actually, I think 3 really big fires on the 15 in the Cajon Pass, and there's only one alternate to get down into that valley from this valley, and that's going all the way west on Highway 138 into Palmdale and coming down. Just as a matter of practicality, I would love to see Highway 39 opened all the way from the 210 to the 2. I would be in favor of the viaduct or the full reopening. I don't think the 1-lane plan is a good plan because, let's be honest, most of us who are here know how people already drive on Highway 2. I certainly do. And, you know, I don't think it's going to be safe to have that narrow road, even if there are only 4-wheeled vehicles on it. And when you factor in bikes, motorcycles, hikers, it just becomes completely impractical. What else? There was one other thing I wanted to say. Now, I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate your remarks. I'm going to lower your hand and move on to our next speaker, and that is Richard Ferguson. I'm going to allow you to talk now and ask you to unmute, and please speak so we know we can hear you. Richard?
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Historically, this route has been deemed valuable. It's the 3rd attempt to get up the canyon. The East Fork was washed out. The Shoemaker Canyon Road was never completed. And this route actually, even below Crystal Lake, there is a section that was rerouted because of the geology. My 2 concerns would be cost, as well as the bighorn sheep. Ideally, the best alternative in my mind would be the viaduct. because the sheep could pass under. But it would also be the most expensive, and whether that's warranted or not, I don't know. The big one is safety. The 39 was thought as a way of escape from the valley if, heaven forbid, a nuclear war ever broke out. But other than that, I think our bigger concern is fire. It is really difficult for those of us who travel the two to not have any other way down except at the two remote ends in the Angeles Forest Highway. Having this alternative to come down in the middle would be wonderful. And I think it would be important for emergency vehicles. Yeah, recreation is nice, but I would think that the emergency access trumps the recreation. It would be wonderful too if there were some, I'm losing the term, the airborne cameras that could study the routes that the sheep currently take to see where the best point to allow them to cross over. They had many years where they couldn't do that, and I've been around for a while. I don't recall there ever being any problems in the past. Maybe there were. I don't remember hearing about any of them. And as rapidly as I could, I think that covers it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, our next speaker is Jonathan Lewis. I'm allowing you to talk and asking you to unmute, Jonathan.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, so my name's Jonathan Lewis and I live in Wrightwood. And I think another consideration in all this is the impact that opening the 39 would have to neighboring communities, including Wrightwood, but the Angeles Crest Highway as a whole. It would substantially increase the usage, which I believe would be a detriment to the area. Recreation is important, but if it disturbs the environment to the point where this no longer becomes a place where one wants to recreate because of the number of people, the number of automobiles, the number of motorcyclists. Right now, it takes a little bit of work to get here. And I think that should remain necessary, because increasing the traffic on 39 and allowing any vehicular traffic is going to increase the danger to the buckhorn sheep that are on the two and in the area of the two. So putting in a viaduct so they're allowed to pass below in some type of migration doesn't prevent the problem of all the increased cars and motorcycles and traffic on the two. And the amount of money that would need to be put into this project is mind-boggling. And I think that money would be much better served being put into air tankers and other firefighting apparatus.
1 minute.
Thank you. We have much more of a problem with the current droughts and the state of the forest and the dangers of fires that need a lot of money thrown at it. And to throw money at this just so that the few people that remember what it was like when it was open feel like they can have better access. We don't want this to become an ingress or egress from the two or from the forest. There's plenty of ways to safely get out, and this doesn't look like it would ever be a safe alternative. But thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, our next speaker is Neil Polson. Neil, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for the consideration and having everyone here tonight. The presentation I thought focused on unrestricted access to Route 2, which I do think is important and is long overdue for those of us in the San Gabriel Valley, Covina, Azusa area, being able to connect up to the 2 in the Wrightwood area without having to drive and put more miles and do more emissions all the way around, I think is a big important thing. In order to protect the sheep, I think it's also made clear that to have full drivability means it really has to be that kind of separated highway away from the mountain face. And I think if that's what's needed for those 4.4 miles, then we should, go for that. But also to me, unrestricted access to the forest means full access to the forest. And so, I know there are some other plans or portion of other plans where you're talking about parking. So parking probably at the ends would still be good, having additional access there. I think if you separated out that highway, you could make the existing road into a pedestrian and bike trail, turn it, repurpose it into it effectively what it is now. I think if that's officially repurposed, you can also open that up to other forms of mobility that otherwise don't have a lot of ways to experience the forest and don't have a lot of ways to experience the trails in that way. So it'd be unique for your mobility challenge persons to access the forest. I think it'd be great to have parking islands along the way. So maybe instead of not that 4.4 miles, but if there's a couple of additional spots, either be it day use areas, be it just parking areas that people can venture out to the forest from there. And if we're doing this kind of great project, I think it's not beyond thinking, how do you put EV charging up there or solar panels or things like that? So you really can kind of tout the greenness and access to the forest and make sure even some of those vehicles with less range can make it out there or have a place to charge up or camp out for longer periods of times and have access to green power. So I'd really invite to open up and think big. It can be a unique thing, a really jewel of California. It has been decades since people have really had access to this area. And I think it is going to be admittingly an expensive project. But I think when it comes to it, as far as the state highway system, as far as the state, just thinking a little bit bigger and real access as a theme, you can add a few more pieces to some of these projects and open that up quite a bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is James Grimm. And James, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, so I am a resident of Wrightwood. I've lived up here almost all my life, almost 30 years or something like that. So I definitely have a lot of experience seeing the impacts of traffic, the way that there are spikes in traffic during certain seasonal times, and just in general, the animals and plants that live here and their kind of impact from a lot of extra human activity. And I think that overall, this road does have a very unique position to bring people into the forest and do it in a truly accessible way where it can do it car-free. There's a lot of goals that California, the county, and people and people in Wrightwood and in the general sense of the world want to have less impact from climate change, from emissions. So we should be looking at that first before we look at cars as a way of getting people into the forest. So I think that the plan to have it where there is a slow moving shuttle bus that can bring people into the area from other public transportation, possibly even bringing them farther into the forest, would be an excellent way to use this money. It would be a very unique way that we could actually bring people into the forest who are car-free, who are possibly have different disabilities that don't allow them to access the forest in ways that other people do. And it would also allow people to just enjoy the forest in a much more human way, where they can be on horses, they could be on bicycles, and they wouldn't be impacting any of the bighorn sheep. It would also be something that we could really use as an example, because San Gabriel Mountains being in such close
1 minute.
Oh, thank you. It being in such close proximity to Los Angeles, it could be an actual way for people to visit the forest without having to invest a lot of time in renting a car or buying a car. You know, all of the different ways that people have to be creative about getting to the forest when they don't have a car. And I think that would be a really great way to keep the sheep safe. And that's all that I have to say. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, James. Okay, our next speaker is Mark Landis. I'm allowing you to talk and asking you to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you for your time. After listening to all the options and reading the information that was sent out to folks previously in the Mountaineer Progress, I reviewed that pretty thoroughly, and I would prefer option 4, unrestricted access both directions. Option 6 seems to have pretty clear danger associated with it, with two-way traffic, especially with the motorcycle traffic that we already experience on Highway 2. As far as increased traffic into the Angeles National Forest and the Wrightwood area, I am one of the few people probably on this call who did use the road Highway 39 when it was open pre-78, before it was closed. And I can tell you from personal experience that you have to really want to be there to use that highway to get up to the intersection of Highway 2. Even the road going all the way up to Crystal Lake, where approximately where it's closed now, you have to really want to be there. It's not general traffic going through there. As a mountain resident, I think it's critical to have additional access, ingress and egress during emergency. And also there are folks that have struggled throughout the years trying to get home from work in general with freeway closures, and one more option would be ideal. There's only a few access routes across the Angeles and the San Gabriels at this point, and I think that having one more would increase safety. The traffic increase would be extremely minimal, and it would just be more beneficial for recreational users and residents in the area as well. So also, one other thing that I wanted to quickly mention is since Angeles Crest Highway is typically closed in the winter because of snow and because of rockfall and so forth, usually they gate it closed. The Highway 39 access wouldn't affect traffic typically during the winter months, because Angeles Crest Highway is already typically closed during those months. So it would only be a little more than half of the year probably that it would actually be used or drivable all the way through from Glendora, say, to Wrightwood or the other direction towards the west. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Mark. Okay, our next speaker is Zach B. And I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute. Zach?
Hello? Yep.
Hello? We can hear you.
Hello? Okay. So I guess I was just a little bit curious and looking for some more information regarding the last time these projects or this project was looked at. I think it was mentioned in 2009 and maybe 2012. You're looking at project viability, and this project or these projects were abandoned. Looking if potentially more information could be provided in the future on what has changed. It seems that those same challenges still remain, and I'm curious if funding has become more readily available, that this is now being considered again, or what has changed in terms of the challenges that would allow this project to be completed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Zach. All right, our next speaker is Chris Keston. I'm allowing you to talk and asking you to unmute. Chris.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thank you for having me tonight to comment on the proposal. I am strongly in favor of the no build decision, or I should say alternative, partly because I feel like we already have so much road access in the San Gabriel Mountains. We have Highway 2, 39, of course, up to Crystal Lake. We have Glendora Mountain Road and other big roads, Angeles Forest Highway. If there's any story to the San Gabriels, it's that this range has probably been more overbuilt than any mountain range in North America. As far as access goes, I feel like it's important for everybody here to realize too that we can get out of our cars at Crystal Lake and we can hike up to Windy Gap and we can access what is known commonly as the middle high country of the San Gabriels. I think we have enough pavements, we have enough car horns, we have enough motorcycle noise. Highway 39 washing out in 79, I remember, or 78, I remember quite well. I actually have driven it. My parents drove us up the first time to Wrightwood on it back in 74. I remember it as a way in, but an earlier commenter did mention, like, you really have to want to get to it. I actually attended meetings back in the early 1980s that Caltrans hosted seeking abandonment. The agency sought abandonment of the road and was prevented from—
1 minute.
Thank you. From accomplishing that by the Forest Service litigating and preventing Caltrans from doing that due to drains, the perforated risers on the insides of some of the large fill areas not being maintained. They need to be maintained to prevent degradation to Bear Creek in the San Gabriel Wilderness, which is adjacent to this proposed project. So I think we need to look back at history and realize that this same agency sought to abandon it 40 years ago. Anyways, I believe that we are in a good place right now. We have access to emergency vehicles. Let's just do the bare minimum to keep the road open, but let's keep it peaceful for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, our next speaker is, like I just lost a speaker here, Daniel Funk. Daniel, I'm allowing you to speak and asking you to unmute.
Yeah, hi, I guess you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Daniel Funk. I'm a bicycling enthusiast. I've ridden my bike up the 39 to Islip Saddle and Dawson Saddle many times. I'm an advocate for opening the road at a minimum to enthusiasts like myself or hikers. And I'm a car owner as well, so I couldn't deny automobile access, but seeing how, or the irresponsibility of a lot of motor vehicle operators up there, I'd like there to be controls on them through reduced speeds or enforcement by the sheriff. During COVID, we saw a big increase in traffic up there with very minimal enforcement, and as a result, all the turnouts seem to be spin out places and hangout places, and And I think that does represent a danger to the environment, for fire and for wildlife. But yeah, I'm whatever you do, I'm an advocate for allowing access to the people of Los Angeles. It's just such a beautiful area that's so close to the city, but it has to be used responsibly and maintained so that the environment is respected, and long-term use can be ensured that way. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, our next speaker is Robert Kubler. Robert, I'm allowing you to speak and asking you to unmute.
Yes, good evening. So I'm in favor of option alternative 4, full opening. I've worked at Los Angeles World Airports in the city attorney office. I'll tell you right now, alternative number 3 is not going to work. Federal bicycle facilities, VAWA, as part of the mitigation for Tibbet International did a shuttle service. It basically runs empty. Alternative 2, I'm against evacuation route because it doesn't allow public access. That is alternative 1. Alternative number 5, the viaduct construction. I don't support it because, like in Colorado, even though they have a viaduct, we don't have anywhere to get off the road and go into the wilderness to enjoy it. And single lane travel, I can tell you right now, that is probably a safety hazard. People are going to be trying to pass each other, and with a steep hill, you don't want people bumping and rolling off their cars. And the car itself, someone could die, and then you have a car stuck in the middle of nowhere. You have to pull out. So I'm mostly a recreational user, and I would love a full reopening to enjoy the wilderness, to get out there, take my kids up there, because when you go to Crystal Lake, you get the end of the road and you can't drive anywhere. Also, it would be good to have a full reopening for the environment. It would reduce the number of miles driven between the areas, and I think that'd be great because less miles driven is less CO2. So yeah, I'm definitely in favor of alternative 4, full reopening, and having those, at least a parking lot added. I think that it did not include a parking lot. At least have some parking lots, because there's probably some trails out there that have not been used in a long time that would be great to park at and be able to enjoy the environment. So yeah, I definitely would love to see that opened up completely and as soon as possible. This project has been going on forever, and I think that's a consequence of CEQA and environmental impact studies that have made California so hard to get anything done. I'm glad this is finally moving forward, because California has been using environmental laws by people who are NIMBYs, not in my backyard kind of attitude, to block every kind of development in the state. And this state badly needs infrastructure, badly needs development, and badly needs improvements to its roads. So I fully support this, and I'm glad you've taken part in this tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, our next speaker is Brenda. So Brenda, I'm going to allow you to speak and ask you to unmute.
Hi, my name is Brenda Kyle. I'm in favor of alternative 3, which was the recreation use. As someone earlier pointed out, recreation and accessibility doesn't just include people that can hike. It also includes those that cannot get out and hike, but can drive as passengers, or ride as passengers rather. Access to people that are with canes, or cannot walk, etc., with outlooks and parking, hopefully other amenities such as interpretive signage and restrooms, education on how to recreate responsibly, because if we do get shuttle people up there, that's the group that's going to probably come up, and maybe first timers that want to get the lay of the land, etc. Questions about the other alternatives that include roundabouts. I know that this is not the place for questions, but those would be concerns for me, the roundabouts and safety.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Our next speaker and the only other raised hand that we have is Lambda Moses. I'm going to ask you to unmute. I'm allowing you to speak and asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So hi, my name is Lambda. I'm a Pasadena resident and I'm an avid cyclist. And by the way, although I've been living in the LA area for 9 years, I've never had a car. And so I'm really excited about certain aspects of option number 3, especially the shuttle, because actually I have biked all the way from Pasadena to Wrightwood, and I took the closed part of 39 to get to Wrightwood. It will often there are many fallen rocks on the closed part 39, and that could be a hazard, and it's also difficult to ride there with the fallen rocks. So I'm also an environmentalist. I'm actually not entirely sure if we should not allow cars there at all, but because it could make sense to be for that part of 39 to be an evacuation route. But in non-emergency times, I do think this is an opportunity for us to break free from our culture's addiction to cars, because otherwise we will not be able to achieve our carbon neutral goals. And we're not going to achieve the 1.5 degree goals. And we should curb our consumption in general, and electric cars are not a panacea, because that will mean if we keep up with the consumption rate, then the extra solar panels and wind turbines in, for instance, Mojave Desert will destroy the ecosystems there. And we do not want our access to this wilderness to destroy not only this wilderness, but also wilderness elsewhere. And so it'll be great to have the shuttle to be well connected to the Gold Line in Duarte.
1 minute.
So hopefully that can replace more car trips into the wilderness to better protect the environment in the San Gabriel Mountains. Also, we should remember Vision Zero we should not turn 39 to another highway where priority is for cars to go fast while killing others outside cars as well as wildlife. I think another suggestion, if we are to welcome more active users, active tourists, then it will be great to have restrooms and the water fountains. Thank you.
Thank you, Lambda. Okay, we have a couple more speakers here. Manuela Santa Cruz, I'm going to allow you to speak and ask you to unmute.
Hi, my name's Manuela Santa Cruz. I live in Azusa. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I live in Azusa, right off Highway 39. I often go up to Highway 39 to Crystal. As a matter of fact, I was out there on Saturday. It's a beautiful drive up there, but the only thing that's ruining it now is the motorcyclists that go up there and the cars that go up there and hang out right where the highway is closed off, right after Crystal Lake. So my concern is if we open it up, we might have more cars going up there. All these young men that are up there racing, doing donuts. That's my concern. I would love for it to be opened all the way to Highway 2, because that means I could explore more of the national forest. I mean, more of the forest, but my concern is with all those, there's no supervision. There's no one patrolling the area. And it makes it very dangerous for us to drive up there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Manuela.
All right, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Jorge Salcedo Daniel. I'm allowing you to talk and asking you to unmute, please.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for putting this presentation and allowing us to speak in regards to State Route 39. I've ridden my bike and driven my bike up that beautiful highway many times since I was a little kid, and it's a beautiful highway. I am in favor of fully opening the road, unrestricted. I lived in Big Bear actually for many years, for 4 years. So I drove up and down Highway 38 for many years as well. And I would be in favor of, as been mentioned, having turnout lanes if that was possible. If that is possible, I know that's a pretty narrow highway, but I would keep that in mind. And in regards to, I would make sure that there was a plan also for snow removal. I know that Highway 38 still, SR 38 still open even when it snows. They may have to close it for snow removal or if there's accidents, but I think there is a possibility to keep the Highway 39 open even in the winter. I would see if that would be a possibility. And same thing with Highway 2. I'm sure they could do that with Highway 38, and that should be possibility with 39 and 2 as well. The reasons that I wanted to be open is for safety reasons. I live in Big Bear, and as been mentioned, there was many risk of fires, and having an alternative is always great. Right now, there's only I think there's only one way to go in and out of as they call it, the high desert, which is I-15. I think having this alternative would be ideal for safety reasons, and as mentioned, when it comes to safety as well, make sure that there would be extra CHP or sheriffs to make sure that there's it's safe for people to drive up and down 39, for cyclists, for cars, motorcycles. I would make sure that there would be enforcement as well. Yes, thank you again for allowing us to speak. Again, I'm fully in favor, and I would appreciate if you kept us posted on any upcoming plans and what the future of 39 would look like. Everyone have a good night, and thanks again.
Thank you, Jorge. Okay, our next speaker is Edgar Arroyo. I'm going to allow you to speak and ask you to unmute.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, my name's Edgar. I'm a quite avid user of both Angeles Crest and this SR 39, as well as the closed portion. I've hiked it a number of times, and of course driven up throughout all the areas. And I think, when we look at the primary purpose, at least what this was intended for, it seems like the real point was access to the mountain communities. And seeing as this road's been closed for quite a number of years, it seems like it's hopefully it's time to provide the full coverage that the roadway deserves, and provide access really to all. I understand that comes with its challenges, as well as what we see kind of happen on Angeles Crest with speeders and all that. And I think that overall, while there's no doubt that would be a continuing factor even when the roadway opens, perhaps with some traffic calming measures incorporated into the design of the project, that would potentially help alleviate that. While I understand that there are some environmental concerns to it, I think overall really the goal is restoring access that has been kind of lost for quite a number of decades at this point. And to that effect, looking at the proposals when it comes to the construction of viaducts and all that, I think all that is great, but really unrealistic in the sense of if it wasn't able to be financed and fully funded the first time around, I don't see that would be the case even then. I think a more viable solution here would be the restoration of the existing roadway to the best extent possible, of course, with accounting for portions that have been washed out and other features to prevent or hold back rock slides and things of that nature through the roadways. So I think for my personal opinion, I would support the roadway opening, but another alternative that I don't think got explored here and is really long-term, if the roadway is not to be restored in any way, shape or form, and really there is no funding for it, then what is the purpose of us having it there? And if that is the case, potentially look at relinquishing that back to the National Park Service, which could potentially mean removal of improvements that have been already installed within that area. I think ultimately it's the intent is for this area here and why it was constructed in the first place was to provide access. And if that's not being provided, then really restoration of that area and returning it back to its former use, which was recreational activities as part of the National Park Service, really is, you know, an alternative that, while I think no one really wants to or has explored, should be explored in this case. So thank you.
Thank you, Edgar. Okay, our next and last speaker is Nathan Nunez. Nathan, I'm allowing you to speak now, asking you to unmute. Nathan? Hello?
Yes, hi. This is actually Kevin Nunez. I'm Nathan's father. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Yeah, I was unable to log in earlier and register. But yeah, real briefly, I'm a tribal member with the Gabrielino San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, and I'm the current liaison for the tribe to the U.S. Forest Service. My family has lineal roots in the San Gabriel Mountains, meaning that we are descended from 2 villages within the San Gabriels. I was raised in Azusa and I currently live in Wrightwood. So I was a bit surprised to hear about the potential reopening, and I just wanted to share some thoughts. Regularly visited the San Gabriel since childhood, and I've been really strong on environmentalism, meaning that at a young age, was witness to a lot of the trash and graffiti and vandalism that occurred at the different forestry stops, bathrooms and sites, etc. So it was always a concern. As I grew older, I participate in and organize canyon cleanups. Some of the things that we're facing now in the canyon is heavy overuse. In addition to that, there's quite a bit of trash and graffiti and vandalism. We have illegal hunting, gathering. We've had criminal activity. We have heavy use on the roads from different car clubs and organizations that speed and race. Unfortunately, I've been a first responder by just being present to many of the accidents, some which resulted in deaths. These are some pretty serious things. I think that looking at this potential project, I don't feel that public access to the road, other than for its use by forestry, Caltrans, law enforcement, or as evacuation route, is something that I would like to see happen, because I feel currently there are too many demands being placed on the mountains and they are in distress. I mean, the recent fires cost some 120,000 acres to be lost, and the recurrent fires are environmentally affecting it in such that
1 minute.
You're having areas that cannot regrow and restore themselves quickly enough because of the human presence. So I think there's a lot to be considered. My son and I do work in the canyon with the environmental Canyon City environmental project. Excuse me, I'm a little tired, it's been a long day. And so we do canyon cleanups and forest fire mitigation work. So we're very actively involved. We're up there on a regular basis. I currently live in Wrightwood, so I do have concerns of opening 39 and bringing a lot of that traffic and more people into the backside of the San Gabriels, which are quite pristine and should be protected. And we've got to do better than having one dump truck or trash truck for the entire San Gabriels to remove trash. So, I mean, I have limited time to explain, but I just wanted to share these thoughts. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Nathan. Okay, that is all the speakers we have for this evening. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and ask Laura, thank you for stopping to share your screen. And I'm going to go back to the presentation itself and get to our final slide for this evening and the closing of our meeting. So Carl, take it away.
All right, Rebecca, thank you. And thank you to everybody who's participating tonight. We received some excellent comments and excellent feedback. I do appreciate that. And as I said earlier, we will take every comment very seriously, and that will help guide our project as we go forward. Again, feel free to provide additional comments if you have any additional comments to provide. You know, we have my contact information is there on the screen. Send me an email, send me a letter, any way that you can or any way that you want. Please provide additional comments. I encourage you to stay in contact with the product team. Check out the product website. And again, this slide presentation will be posted on the project website, as well as access to the recording of the presentation. So I do encourage you to revisit that if you need additional information. Again, thank you, everybody, and wish everybody a good night. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending.